Come on and go cruising with your friends, man. Call Ivy Munn with Capturing Memories Together Travel Agency for a great Caribbean cruise today for just $3,647 and ask about the onboard credit of $50 when you call her at 830-613-0161, or you can find her on the web at www.capturingmemoriesttogethertravel.com. Hey folks, welcome to our very first instructional video brought to you by Hyperfusion. We are a rural internet service provider founded in Burnett, Texas in 2017. It is our mission to help make the internet a safer, better, and more socially responsible place for everyone. This video is called How to Double Your Wi-Fi Speed for Free. Lots of folks struggle today with Wi-Fi. They just don't quite completely understand how Wi-Fi routers work or really how to set them up. A lot of the mobile apps and the little wizards they've come out with just don't seem quite to do the trick. We've come across this a lot with people contacting us for internet. They always ask, hey, I want to get Wi-Fi service. But the truth is no provider sells Wi-Fi, truly sells Wi-Fi. What they sell is internet. Wi-Fi is what's distributed by your router throughout your house, and no provider anywhere guarantees Wi-Fi. There's a very good reason for that too. That's why most internet companies ask you to take a laptop or a desktop and plug it directly into the modem, alleviating the router out of the mix or the Wi-Fi because they don't want that interfering with the testing. And if you're wondering what the difference is between a modem and a router, you can check out our other video labeled What's the Difference Between a Modem and a Router? And that's under our videos section, but we're not going to go into that in this video. And if you're wondering why Wi-Fi is not guaranteed these days, that's what we're certainly here to help you understand. What it all boils down to is how what's called wireless spectrum works. It's important to understand the difference between wireless spectrums or signals and how they propagate through different materials differently. There are only three bands that common commercial Wi-Fi routers use, as you can see from this little image that, or this little chart that we have here that shows the Wi-Fi channel spectrums here, both the 2.4, the 5 gigahertz, and the 6 gigahertz. What's important to take away from this little chart is that internet comes basically, or the Wi-Fi channels come basically either in 20, 40, 80, or 160 megahertz beam width. And that's how wide the channel is. The wider the width, the more speed you get, but then the fewer channels that are available and the more susceptible to interference that you'll be. All currently commercial available routers contain a 2.4 and 5 gigahertz band transmitters pretty much by default, but some of the newer ones, however, have what's called Wi-Fi 6, and these new band, the new band runs from 5,925 megahertz to 7,125 megahertz and offers 29 new channels if you're in 40 megahertz beam width mode. And all that's important to really know there, like I said from this chart, is how those Wi-Fi channels are split up. The first thing you need to do in order to double your Wi-Fi speed, though, is you have to know what all the other neighboring Wi-Fi routers and devices in your house are as well, what they're doing, and you have to be able to discover them. And what we recommend for that is this handy little app that's made by Ubiquiti, and it's called Wi-Fi Man. You can download it for either your Android or your iOS phone. It works really well on both, so there's no need to fret about that. It should be easily findable in your iPhone stores. And as you can see here from my phone, which I am kind of casting my phone to this video here. Let me just adjust it so it's a little bit easier seen by everybody. And as you can see here from my phone, where I have the Wi-Fi Man app, I'm going to run as I just open up my Wi-Fi Man app here, pretty simple. And if you go to the wireless tab, you'll notice at the bottom right in the middle, you'll see wireless. And what that's doing is it's scanning all the different bands around. And you'll notice this is a 2.4 gigahertz band. But you can see mine's called Captain Planet here, or excuse me, my sample router is called Nezzy, not Captain Planet. Captain Planet's my home router. And then there's also another one you see that says Spectrum Setup. Well, if we look at this handy dandy little 2.4 gigahertz spectrum map here, we can see that there are only 3 non-overlapping channels. In the 2.4 gigahertz mode, there's only 3. And 2.4 gigahertz spectrum can easily travel through all manner of building materials, from siding to metal siding, brick, stone, sheetrock, insulation, whatever. And these signals, although the internet may not work past probably about 100 meters, the signal is still pushed way past 1,000 meters. And so if you have any more than 4 people within a 1,000 meter radius of each other, 2 people's Wi-Fi is never going to work. And as we see our little app, as it propagates, we can see my 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi here just doesn't work. And remember, folks, I'm the Chief Technology Officer for an internet service providing company, and I can't use Wi-Fi. There's nothing I can do to combat this problem, with the exception of switching to a different spectrum. You'll notice in the 5 gigahertz spectrum, you'll see there's channels available. But as you scroll through here, you'll see there's blank spots. Especially up in the higher end, there's a lot of blank spots where there's just nothing. So that's our target range and what we want to do. And as you can see from the main screen here, I have my example router that I have plugged in and casted the screen to it. So all you want to do is go into your configuration. Now that you know you're looking for channel 165 there, we will get going there. And I'm just having a little issue with my router, not wanting to show up. Is being winky, but that's okay. So what we go into is our basic wireless settings. Now, all routers today, for the most part, they all have the same settings, and they're almost identical. You know, every router may be a little bit different. You might be using it on the Wi-Fi or on the mobile app itself, but all the settings, they're all the same settings. They're called pretty much all the same thing. And so what we want to do is manually set the 5 gigahertz channel to one of those free ones that we saw in there, because the 2.4, we may as well leave at auto because it's just too combobulated to really do anything with. So it doesn't really matter. So you select your channel width, and I'd go into 40 megahertz only because it keeps it still and steady. You can select auto, and if there's space available, it'll go into 160. But the auto mode on channel width only really works well if you have your channel set to auto, which we're not doing. So you'll want to manually set your beam width. I would set it to 40. That's just least likely it's going to be interfered with. And if we scroll down here to find channel 165, we'll notice this router doesn't go up to 165. And you're like, oh, crud. But you'll notice there, channel 161 just below it is also free. So you simply select 161 and you hit the save button or apply or whatever your particular router says. And then if we run another scan here on our Wi-Fi Man app, this should generally refresh on its own, although I'm not 100% sure of the time it takes to refresh. But now we can see this is labeled won't work. It has moved into channel 159. And now we can see that it's out of the range of all the other Wi-Fis. Now, if we come over here and switch that into 80 megahertz mode, you'll notice here with the channel set to 161, we can only do 80 megahertz and won't do 160 in that channel when you manually set it. The 160 megahertz bandwidth option just simply isn't available. So we just wait for those settings to change. And we should notice the block that represents the Wi-Fi signal expand. And if it goes from 40 to 80, it should roughly double in size. We'll see what it says. We can kind of off change the screens here, so maybe it'll force a rescan. And there we go. See how it jumped? And now it's 80 megahertz wide like some of the other ones, but you'll notice there actually is things in that channel. And so that could potentially affect our Wi-Fi, and that's another reason why I recommend going into the 40 megahertz mode, because it simply reads differently, and we can shift to the left of that signal and we won't have an issue with it anymore. This is easily commonly done on pretty much any phone. Um, it's a very handy tool to have when you're scanning for Wi-Fi signals and things like that to know what's around so you can navigate around them. And as you can see, as this repopulates, I changed it back to 40 megahertz, and we'll just go off here to Bluetooth and come back over. And we should notice it shrink back down. And for the most part, that's all it really takes. What the name of the game is you want to make sure the channel you select isn't overlapping any other channels that your Wi-Fi man analyzer tool shows you. It's just will help ensure that your Wi-Fi is running interference free. And that way you don't have any problems with your Wi-Fi. And that should definitely double your Wi-Fi speed in most cases. Not in every case, but in most cases. We know it can be a little overwhelming. So if you are a subscriber of ours, please feel free to call in. But hopefully this should help most folks get in around their router, kind of look at what some router settings are. Most of them, pretty much for the most part, look the same when you're going in over your web page. And almost all routers, not all of them, but most of them, their default IP address for the web browser to get in like I did. As you can see, I have this in full screen mode, but it's just a web browser, and I just put in the IP address. And the most default common IP address is 192.168.1.1. You just plug that in there. Should bring up that login page, just like you've seen before. That should get you into that screen. If you're wondering how I got to that, that's how I got there. And you can Google your router's model number, so you can look up what the default IP address is for your router, be able to figure out what that is. It's pretty easily Googleable as far as how to get your IP address. Unfortunately, every device is different, so I'm not going to go over specifically on how to find your IP address on your device. Although if you join us on our Friday night stream and you bring your device with you and you get your model number, I can certainly show you on a live stream on how to get that done for you. It's not that difficult to process, and it's not too arduous, so I'm happy to help out with that. And just really be careful, folks, because it's so heartbreaking to learn how many folks upgrade their internet package because they think that it's too slow, when really the problem is they just have a misconfigured Wi-Fi setting because they're using Wi-Fi. Most people don't use the hard lines anymore. And so really, you're just throwing away for money when you could just create a simple little fix and have that done in no time at all. And then it, of course, obviously saves you quite a bit of money. Outside of that, a simple scan to find a free channel, it can be a surefire way to double your Wi-Fi speed for free. And remember, folks, be sure to check us out on our Friday night stream, and always be safe, and have a good night.
Come on and go cruising with your friends, man. Call Ivy Munn with Capturing Memories Together Travel Agency for a great Caribbean cruise today for just $3,647 and ask about the onboard credit of $50 when you call her at 830-613-0161, or you can find her on the web at www.capturingmemoriesttogethertravel.com.